Matt, welcome to the Founder Views podcast. Really excited to speak with you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm pumped.
Good, good. So, I was excited to speak to you because you obviously appear to be very active in real estate, helping others, but investing in your own stuff, of course, which you talk about, but more specifically with short-term Airbnb rentals. I've been very active myself in the real estate investing market right now, and just exploring different strategies to investing. Um, and that's one of the beautiful things I've found about real estate investing. Like, there's literally an infinite number of ways to invest, depending on the individual. So it could be a good investment for one person, could not be for the other. But there's no right or wrong strategy. But one that piqued my interest as of late is this short-term Airbnb strategy. So I was hoping just to pick your brain a bit and learn from your experience, and hopefully bring value to others listening to as well.
Yeah, of course. I'm kind of obsessed with it, so I'd love to
Good.
share.
Nice. So this should be good. So do you share information about your own personal investments at all?
Yeah, I feel like, well, I mean, you gotta walk the walk, right? So I will openly share. I won't share an address, I won't share details like that,
Yeah.
obviously, for personal reasons, but I'll share what my actual numbers look like. Um, and then, if that's enough to pique interest, people will reach out, then I'll share more. Um, but I think just what these things can earn um, is more than enough to really pique someone's interest. Like it's insane the response I get when I'm sharing this information, and I couldn't I don't doubt them because there's it's just relative like comparing to traditional rentals, and especially in Toronto with the cap rates we have here. When you see numbers like that on Airbnb in Toronto, it's going to pique your interest.
Yeah, that's why it piqued my interest as well. When you see some of these numbers, and obviously what people share and what's reality. I'm not saying I haven't even seen what you've shared, but I just really want to speak to someone who's actually doing it, boots on the ground. How many investments are you listing on Airbnb right now?
Well, I have my Toronto condo, and then I have my investment in Florida.
Oh, okay.
That's just it's just being designed right now. So we plan on having a live October 1st. It's now September
Amazing.
5th, so pending no delays with furniture and everything. But I have three properties in total. One is just a traditional, but once I've seen the potential through Airbnb, and I'm very well networked within the Airbnb space. So a lot of my mentors and other people that I talk to on a daily are way at a much higher level than I am with Airbnb. Running 100 plus units, and
Wow.
being able to see their numbers and their stats so consistently. It's all I really want to do right now. Is just that I'm don't want to deal with tenants. The landlord tenant board, everything that can come with that, professional renters. You hear the horror stories. So if there's a way that you can make more money and avoid those stressors, why not?
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. See, this is a beautiful thing about investing. Like, you speak to another investor who will say the total opposite about Airbnb and why they love the other side. So it's a beautiful thing. Um, so you mentioned some, but what are some of the reasons, other than the numbers, I guess, that drew you to Airbnb investing? If there's any other reason, maybe the numbers is all it takes. But
Yeah, I mean it's a from start to finish, it's a fun game. Like purchasing the unit with that whole like vision in mind. It's exciting. I know you can buy anything. You buy a house in general, you're excited, but the flexibility you have, you design it the way you want. Between each booking, you have your cleaners in there cleaning it, restoring it to its perfection. If there is any damages, right away versus waiting that year for that lease to come up. You go and do your inspection with the tenant, and you find a bunch of shit, and then good luck even going after them for any of those repairs and stuff, right? So being able to go into the unit in between each booking, keeping it well maintained, and then also having the flexibility to use it yourself.
yeah,
If I want to use my condo next week, pending it's not booked, I just reserve those days. I block them off so no one can book them, and I go and use my own space.
yeah,
Right? You
yeah.
have that flexibility. And the other thing I love too is damages or someone does want to, because people are like, oh, people throw parties, it's going to get destroyed. Okay, if they want to do that, they're going to get charged. We have all their information on file. We have their credit cards. You put a claim in with Airbnb. They're really good at looking at the situation, and if it's clearly the damage is clearly the result of the guest, they're going to get charged for the amount. And I've been through that, and I've gotten all the money back for the damages, right?
Really?
So good luck with a tenant. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, there are cooperative tenants, but then there's tenants that are not. They don't want to pay you. Good luck evicting them.
That's a good point about you have their information on file. So if there's damages, that's all part of the Airbnb agreement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we do is so I'll just tell a story.
Please.
When I first started running I've been doing this since 2019. So a lot of trial and error. But when I first opened up my condo, we had booked it to a out of town guest who was 19. She was coming from Richmond Hill.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone's familiar with Richmond Hill,
yeah.
It's not that far. Now we know that's a clear indicator. 19-year-old coming to the city, probably going to go out, probably going to party, probably might continue the party at the Airbnb, right? She ended up having a 20-person banger, and just killed my drywall. She slammed my sliding doors, cracked the drywall.
Jeez.
Shelves came out, ripped the shelves off my walls. I believe they were twerking because there's footprints on the wall and the
wow.
Only thing that made sense was these girls went upside down and started twerking. You know what I mean? And then they threw a bottle of tequila off the balcony. So
jeez,
we got her for everything. Again, we had all of her information. We got all the damages back. We just went in, took pictures, sent the claim in, and we were good. But now moving forward, what we do is we vet all the guests. So we have a certain age restriction.
Yeah.
We also ask for a security deposit. So we try and really we try our best to avoid that kind of situation, and I've never had that happen again. So luckily, knock on wood, again, I'm only running the market.
That's crazy. It's hard to imagine a worse situation than that one. I mean, I'm sure you could get worse, but still, that's pretty crazy. How's the claims process like? So you send pictures, but what if the guest claims against it, saying it was like that before or whatnot? How does Airbnb handle the situation if the guest fights back on what you're claiming?
Well, we have a bunch of photos, so we have my property management runs everything, so they're actually very hands off, and I believe that they make note of the condition of the property before, in the event that does happen. So we have proof no, here's our cleaners, they were just in there, here's what everything looked like.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's pretty tough to dispute it, basically.
Yeah, it's okay, here's the day before you came in, here's everything as it was before you came in, right?
Right, yeah. All right, yeah. All right, that's a good story. How much in damages was that?
We got $2,000.
Nice. Okay. So obviously location is one of the most important things in real estate investing in general, but with Airbnb investing, is there anything specific you look for in regards to location with Airbnb?
Yeah, the way you gotta look at Airbnb is more of a hospitality business, right? You want to be close to amenities, you want to be close to attractions, whether that's an airport, convention center, a beach, anything wherever you are, anything in your area that would attract someone to want to visit. So you gotta come from an approach of the hospitality, right? You can't just look at it oh, I'm this intersection. The guest, when they're booking on Airbnb, they don't book the address, they just book. They get a general location of where it's located. Clearly they're traveling with plans in mind. They're going to want to be situated close to what they're planning on doing. So being at the center of a lot of things is something to definitely look for when you're scouting for a property. Yeah,
that's a good point. So look at it like a hotel, hospitality, location wise. What about in Toronto though? Condos restrict a lot of Airbnb, right?
Yeah. There are condos that allow it.
Mm-hmm.
It's built into the the declaration, the condo corporation, their rules. STR, short-term rentals, is allowed. Then you have the buildings that don't allow it, and I would not suggest trying in those buildings because chances are you're probably going to get caught. I mean, people still do it. People have their ways of doing it, but it's more so for your own mental health. Like you want to go to bed every night, just wondering like, shit, am I ever going to get booked? Someone are going to catch me. So I would highly advise, and I help my clients all the time. Just we go into the buildings that allow it, and it's easy, smooth sailing from there, right?
Do you ever worry about the building that allows it now in the future changing the rules? Is that a risk factor for you?
Something we think about all the time, but a lot of the owners, so a lot of the people in those buildings are running Airbnb. So if you need a mass vote
Mm.
to get rid of Airbnb, you're not dealing with a lot of end users. You're dealing with a lot of investors, and chances are they're probably going to vote to keep it, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are in those buildings. If you're in a building that's full of end users, families, younger families, whatever you have it, yeah, sure, they might overrule, but in these cases, a lot of these buildings are just packed with investor savvy
Yeah.
users, and most likely gonna never really want to vote for to get rid of it.
If you had
Anything
to,
can happen, but
yeah. I was just
that's the way I see it.
if you had to ballpark it, how many buildings would you say allow it versus not allow it in Toronto?
Uh, there's you gotta call each property management. There's I'd say like around 20 plus, in between 20 and 30 that allow it at different capacities.
Mm.
Some allow only 30-day plus rentals. Like the
Yeah.
shortest term you can have is for like 28 days. That's the shortest term you can have. But you can do a month-to-month rental if you want, and it's allowed. So if you have someone traveling for work or whatever, you want to continuously just book up your unit on Airbnb, minimum 28 nights stays, you can do it. Other buildings allow it, short term under anything less than 28, so 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. Um, each building is unique. There's Once you take that big number, that list of buildings, you're going to narrow it down to, a handful that are like the highest in returns, and those are the ones that we focus on.
Yeah, makes sense. What's your? Do you have a sweet spot with how you rent them out, like by week, weekend, or just whatever?
So another thing with Toronto that people must know is they have regulations that they implemented in 2020. So essentially, the complaint was that for the rental market, uh, for example, a lot of potential units were now taken off the market for the long-term renters because people are using them for Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
So what the city did was they put a regulation in place to limit, number one, make it difficult for people to do Airbnb. If it can sound scary up front and be like, gosh, I don't want to deal with that. To try and bring more long-term units to the market, and then so essentially what it is you can only short-term, so short-term defined as 28 days or less for 180 days out of the year.
Mm.
The other 180 days you have to long-term, which is defined as 28 days or more. So what we do is, obviously the winter months not really attracting many people here. That's when we do the longer term rentals. And in the summer months, when we have all the events, we have the Caravanas, we have the Toronto Film Festivals, we have the car shows, anything that's going to attract tourists, that's when we have the short-term rental on. And that's when you're netting all your profits, essentially.
Yeah,
And
I wanted to get into that. Can you repeat that again? So 180 days out of the year, you have to rent less than 28 days?
It's up to you, but that's the max. The max you can short-term rent it. So 1 night stays, 2 night stays, 3 night stays, 4 night stays. The max you can do that for is for up to 180 days.
180. Okay, got it.
Once you reach that max in your unit, you can only rent for 28 days or more. So if you want to get someone, like in the winter months, we get someone in there, executive rentals for months at a time. Some guys will look for 3 months, some for 2 months, usually for work and whatever.
Yeah.
The returns are much less, but we have to abide by the laws. We have to do that. Another main thing that helps, that's hard for people to scale in Toronto specifically. So when I say Toronto, I'm talking about GTA. If you want to go and do this in Muskoka, you're clear. This is just Toronto rules. It has to be a primary residence. So you have to have the address has to match your driver's license, the address on your driver's license.
So
So
you're
if I wanted to go
oh,
two under my name,
yeah.
I can't because I can only be primary at one resident,
Oh,
right?
I see. Okay, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. So that's just in the city of Toronto. So you can only have one. Is this just for condos or even residential, everything?
Well,
Or yeah, okay. Wow, okay.
anything in Toronto. Yeah, anything with a Toronto address. As soon as you leave Toronto, then those rules don't apply. Each city and town will have their own rules or laws against Airbnb, if any. It's banned in many places. Some places allow it. So there's always a level of due diligence to do before buying any property. I'm speaking onto Toronto right now, but there are parts. Cottage country is huge for Airbnb. There are attractive or popular spots in the cottage country that don't allow it, but then there are spots that do.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. That's a good. I didn't know the details on that. So one of the negatives or cons I can see with Airbnb rentals, and you mentioned it specifically in Toronto, even like all of Canada, I guess, but like high demand in the summer, low demand in the winter. Typical scenario. Are those peak seasons in the summer making up for the down seasons?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And when COVID hit, so like I said, I started my unit in 2019. COVID hit, took a shit kicking. Can I say shit here?
Of course.
We took a shit kicking that year because obviously the pandemic, no one's traveling, and we had no idea what to expect, right? So, and then plus the regulations came out. So
Yeah.
it was. I stopped as a realtor with my investors. I stopped promoting Airbnb because I had no idea where it was headed.
Wow.
I took my foot off the gas. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to pitch this anymore because I'm not confident. Now that everything is back and I'm hoping it's here to stay, I can confidently get my investors involved again, and I am because I'm showing them my numbers. I'm not just coming out of I'm not coming from a place of like I think you'll do well. I'm coming from a place of like here you're gonna do
Yeah.
well, right? So the summer months, yes. To answer your question, it's been insanely profitable.
So can you give like I don't know last year just rough like income expenses like profit on your unit?
So last year was another. We last year I think we profited about I want to say 10 to 12,000 cash flow for the year, which is still great.
That's really
It's still
good. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
But it was we had the lockdowns, right? So it wasn't
That's true. Yeah.
forced year. This year, again, conservatively, I got to see how the year end looks, but just with these summer months alone, I think we're gonna be looking at around 30 anywhere from 30 to 40,000 in cash flow.
Really. Wow.
One unit. Yeah, so it's been
Hmm.
amazing. Um, it's exceeded my expectations, and I'll help people with like an analysis prior. We'll run all the numbers. I'll give them like a full like property analysis, conservatively 80% with 80% occupancy, like all that stuff, and we can look
Yeah.
at that. And it's likely going to exceed that. Like it's exceeded our expectations, but it's good to know up front, right? Because if you go and get a duplex, let's say Windsor, like Hamilton, or these outskirts where it's kind of like the only spots you will cash flow. What are you looking at? Maybe 1,000 a month,
Yeah. Yeah.
like on a good investment cash flow.
Yeah.
500 to 1,000 bucks. So right then and there, you're already beating that with an Airbnb in only 6 months of
That's
being allowed to do
amazing.
the short.
I would have never
Yeah,
have guessed the cash flow was that much for a year.
yeah. Like I can share the past 3 months have been so from June, July, August have been anywhere from uh, $6,000 to $9,000 in cash flow
Wow.
after everything, and that's straight profit each month.
After
Each
everything.
month after everything each month,
Wow.
right? Like gross, we were doing about 15,000 in gross
Yeah.
per month. Anywhere from 12 to 15,000 during the summer
Hmm.
months,
Crazy.
and
Yeah.
September will still be good as well. Now it's going to start to come down, but
Yeah.
just for summer months alone, we've done pretty well.
That's amazing. Are there any areas specifically in like Ontario or even all of Canada that you think can be rented all year round at volume? Like Niagara,
Uh,
for example. What do you think of Niagara?
there are certain parts. Again, you have to always. It's good to call the city and see which areas because there are I'm not sure it's in it's relative to like the distance of the falls. There's certain pockets that aren't
Mm,
allowed, I think, because hotels, right? But there are some pockets that will. Muskoka, you can run it short term. Wasaga does restrict it, I believe. I know the town of Tiny does, but Wasaga might. Blue Mountain, they have rules. They have their own laws and everything. I don't think you can't 365 for annually unless you're grandfathered in.
mm,
So if you had purchased in a certain pocket that had allowed it before, and when you purchased it, you're able to be grandfathered in for the 365.
yeah.
Blue Mountain's a spot because in the summer you attract people, in the winter you
Yeah.
also attract people.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Have you like actively explored a lot of these other areas outside of Toronto?
Yeah, Blue Mountain I
Yeah.
have. Wasaga I have for investors. Muskoka I have a bunch of people that friends that run and clients that run out there. I'd be very interested for myself in the
Yeah.
future. Anything waterfront really, but you also got to look at it this way too. Again, thinking with COVID and lockdowns, cottage country got insanely popular. People started to all people wanted to do was like, I can work from home. I want an acre. I want 100 by 200 foot lot. I don't want to be in a subdivision anymore. So that whole rush has happened. It's still attracting people, but even with lockdowns and the restrictions and rules on flying and traveling, some people weren't able to get on planes. Still not able to get on planes. So
Yeah.
their form of a vacation has been to book a cottage somewhere 3 hours away on the waterfront just to get out of the city.
Oh
So
yeah.
once once life really comes back, I don't know how attractive that will be anymore. But I still think like for the summer months for sure, it's a very big attraction for people to want to go and go fishing, go just enjoy a weekend at the cottage and have the water right there, go boating. Like it can. There's a number of attractive things that will still attract people there, but I'm not sure how long and that will go for.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Um, so you mentioned it, but the upkeep on these properties with the high turnover, people in and out constantly, just different types of guests, and you sort of explained it in more of like a positive way that you're able to go in and check on the units more frequently. But I'd imagine just that repairs and just miscellaneous costs are more than traditional real estate investments. Like, what are the typical cost allocations to just repairs and small stuff per month?
Um, I don't know. It could be anywhere from we have to replace. There was a stain on the couch. Have to get a deep clean, or we have to replace your toiletries, your towels, bed sheets,
Yeah.
things like that. It's a lot more just wear and tear, right? The rug has 5 stains on it now. Let's just get a new rug.
Mm.
So property management is really good with that, and they'll hit us up. We all chat in a group, and they'll always hit us up. Hey guys, we're in between bookings. We just found this. We would suggest let's freshen it up. Let's get something new in there. Um, but it's like any property, you're going to have your wear and tear with a tenant too. At the end of the year, you might have to repaint it, repaint the
Yeah.
baseboards, patch up the walls, like stuff like that.
Yeah. On your income statement, so like your projections, what's your allocation for that per month? Is it like a few $100 or?
Yeah, a couple $100.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it gets taken out of your gross,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's not bad.
right?
Um, you explained it, you sort of alluded it to it as well, but are there any ways to just mitigate those costs by, investing in, let's say, higher quality product or like branding your Airbnb in a certain way to attract higher quality guests and tenants, which in theory should reduce the amount of like repairs and headaches and stuff?
I mean, yeah, you could it depends what works with the the area you're in. Like in Florida, for example, we're doing a theme like designer themed house because that's what works there based on statistics. So
Hmm.
we're designing it Louis Vuitton themed because in Florida those people love booking like stuff with feature walls. So
Hmm.
we have like it's colored in like the Louis Vuitton colors, and we're gonna call it Villa Vuitton. So it's people booking like this Villa Vuitton. It's trendy. Um, I don't know what type of clientele that will bring in. We'll see. But again, we do have our vetting process, right? So that
Yeah.
that in itself our backbone.
Yeah.
We're not a bunch of kids into the Louis Vuitton house so they can take pictures on Instagram, right? Uh, but yeah, I mean, like if you really want to get like cater to a specific demographic, you can, but you're also going to limit yourself with the number of bookings potentially, right?
That's true. It's funny. I wanted to ask you that as well. But one thing that I can see that's very different with Airbnb rentals compared to traditional real estate investments is, like you just explained, like the marketing and like the creativity that you could do that you traditionally wouldn't do in a normal regular investment, like cool rooms or like Louis Vuitton theme. Like you're not going to do that to rent out in like a suburban subdivision, but um, so to make your property attractive and stand out, like to make someone book your place for a getaway, I can see that. Any like what spurred that idea? Like how do you think about like the creativity aspect? Is it like per location and statistic? Like what statistics would you use to determine that?
So you just go with the trends, right? So like again, like I have a very good network of highly successful people in this space who do it full time. And according to them, I'd have to fact check this, but according to them, the algorithm will reward a property for being trendy, or for being unique,
Mm-hmm.
right? People, especially millennials, people of our generation, they want the trendy thing. They want to book the cool thing. They want to go on vacation and show their friends, like, look where I'm staying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's it's important to get a designer. Like I got my Toronto unit professionally designed by a designer. So if we look at it on Airbnb, and I think it's the way it's performing is just because of it's attraction. Like
Yeah.
it's a really nice looking unit with the colors and everything being in there. So that's what you're doing. You want to appeal to people's senses. Like as a realtor, for example, if I list a property and I don't stage it and it's just bare, I'm not gonna get as many showings or people through the door as I would with a nice stage property because I know how the consumer works. Like the buyers, like my buyers, for example, they always send me properties. I want to go see this, and it's always properties that are like amazing photos, look really nice, super inviting. So, but based on what statistics, again through my network, I have good friends that this property management team, for example, they run over 120 properties in Miami, and they are able to see on the back end how each performs.
Yeah.
And from their findings, the designer themed homes are outperforming every single other house they have in their inventory. They have a Gucci house, they
Wow.
have a Fendi house, they have a Burberry house. Like they have these homes and they're killing it. So when I hear that, I'm like, okay, let me hop in this trend.
That's great. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like actually themed home, like designer themed homes, huh? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's like if I did that in Toronto, maybe it might do well, but like
Wow.
over there, it kills it.
That's crazy. I never knew that. I feel like that's like an overlooked part of Airbnb investing. Like obviously you need like the good photos, but I feel a lot of people go about it the same as a traditional investment, but overlook that creativity, like something different in the house, like a cool games room or like Louis Vuitton theme, like just something that pops and stands out. Because you're dealing with a different consumer, right? Like compared to a residential person renting a house compared to someone with a getaway that wants to have fun and all that. So
Yeah, yeah. You got to speak to the area.
yeah,
You gotta fit the vibe of wherever you are. I love the Airbnb game because I can, my dream is to have all these vacation rentals around the world and being able to use them myself.
yeah,
It's just it's it opens up your mind to the potential of what you can do versus just being like, okay, like I live in the GTA, I'm just going to invest in the GTA. Obviously, there's challenges that come with buying in other different countries or cross border, but it personally excites me. So it's
yeah.
something I definitely want to tackle and there's a lot of opportunity in different markets, right?
It sounds fun for sure. You mentioned them a few times, but I think you by the sounds of it, you definitely need a property management company to take care of
Yeah,
any Airbnb rental for sure. So, like, what are the property management companies generally responsible for? Like, what do they do
literally
exactly?
the platform presence. So one big thing is your reviews. So the guys I use, they're super hosts. So a super host is someone that's reliable. They have a great reputation. So if I'm booking a Airbnb in Italy and the unit I'm looking at has one review, has
Yeah.
3 stars, and the host has like no context, no background, I don't know how comfortable I'll feel with that experience. But if I'm booking a villa in Italy where they're 5 stars, you got 300 reviews, the host has all these good things said about them. They're super hosts, so that
Yeah.
the site will reward them, right?
Yeah.
I'd feel much more comfortable booking that. So working with a property management team that has had all the experience and credibility, my unit automatically gets posted with a super host with reviews, and they're really big on collecting more reviews. So that's one thing. So the presence right off the bat, like I feel like we'd have an advantage using property manager. Number two, that they deal with the guests. So they deal with the monetary side of things. So the amount per night. So they're constantly watching the markets and adjusting. If for example, today's Monday and Wednesday we have nothing booked yet, they'll start lowering the price just to try and get someone in. It's better to have something than nothing. But they're constantly on. Whereas me, I'm a busy guy. I don't have time to do that stuff. So that's very valuable to me. Being physically there and present, meeting the guests, exchanging the keys, all that stuff, I don't have time for. So again, for someone like with my schedule, it's valuable. They set up the cleaning. They they essentially do everything. Just
So okay, I didn't realize it was like that type of. When I'm thinking property management, I just think they come in, they clean the house, check on things, but they're doing the reviews, the adjusting
they're
pricing.
a
Wow,
short-term property management company. Like that's what they specialize in Airbnb,
wow.
short-term
So,
rentals.
any recommendations of companies you work with that you want to give a shout out to here? Or
I can shout out Park Place. I work with them.
Park Place?
They also, yeah, they're going to be managing my Florida house as well.
Are they in Canada
And
as well?
yeah,
Park Place. Okay, nice.
yeah. So I'm working very closely with them. Um, I've used other property management in the past, had the worst experience ever. So
Really?
these guys really flawless at what they do. So I must big shout out to them always.
Are you assigned with like a dedicated rep who deals with your property all the time, or?
Essentially, not necessarily. Like again, we're put in a group with them, so we have 3 to 4 of their employees that we're constantly communicating with. I don't know who's physically going there to do the key exchange and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure they have different runners at different times,
Yeah.
whatever works on our schedule. But all I know is I haven't had one noise complaint in like 2 years. My first property management team we had a ton of noise complaints. Like I got fined like 3 times.
Really?
Yeah, so they're really on the ball. There's certain tools you can use for noise. We have a noise detector inside. Doesn't listen in. It just measures decibels.
Yeah.
So if the volume in the unit gets above a certain decibel point, we get notified, call them right away, say, hey, shut down, whatever you're doing. It's too
Wow.
loud, right? So it's it's pretty bulletproof at the moment.
That's amazing. So, how often do you go to your unit in Toronto then?
I haven't seen it.
You had never seen it?
Oh, I've seen it. It's just not in a while. I've had no intention to see it.
Really?
I've been doing so well. Like for me, I mean, everyone's different. Like I still live downtown. Like I still live in the city, right?
Yeah.
Uh, it's somewhere else. So like I'm already down here. But if it was my Florida home, for example, yeah, I'd probably want to go and use it. So I might book off a weekend where I go and stay there. Just personally here, because I already live in the city, there's really no use for me to go and see the unit. We just have it turned on. We've been booked like 95% of the time.
That's
I'd rather
amazing.
just
Wow.
earn right now. Yeah.
So I guess the only times you might have to go in, or maybe not, is like you have to, let's say, replace a rug or maybe get a new couch. Would you even go for that, or you trust them to handle
They
that
do
as
it
well?
all.
They do all that as well. Wow.
We'll purchase obviously, but they'll do that.
Wow. That's amazing.
If it's any significant, which knock on wood, I haven't had to deal with in the past year and a half, 2 years, then I'll go in.
Yeah.
Right. Just to scope it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Amazing.
like, there's one guy, he locked himself in the bathroom and couldn't get out. I'm not sure how that happened, but he's locked in the bathroom. So the fire department had to come and break my front door down
No way.
in order to get him out. Again, property management dealt with everything. It's not our fault that he locked himself in there. The locking system works fine. So it was just a pretty funny thing. But even so, I still didn't go there for that.
Wow. Okay. What are the general fees for a service like this? Is it a
20%.
percentage or?
Yeah, 20% of the
Oh,
gross.
20%. Okay. Okay. Nice. Other than the property management, what are some other costs to consider with Airbnb that you generally don't have to consider with traditional investments?
So again, just the maintenance, whatever you know, any of your supplies, stuff like that, you got to replenish. That's going to be an occurring cost. Nothing crazy, super small. You will have to cover utilities. So like a tenant rents out your space, they pay for utilities. In this case, you're still paying for utilities because the
Okay.
Airbnb gets to pay for it.
Yeah.
In the form of we're talking condos. I'm still paying maintenance. So would you as a regular landlord though.
Yeah.
And um, we have TV and internet set up in there that we pay for. And that's pretty much it. The guest pays for the cleaning fees,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much it.
So in terms of additional costs, other than like property management, your utilities, if you're in a condo, the maintenance, and maybe a slightly higher like just monthly repair and wear and tear fee. That's pretty much
Yeah,
it. Hmm.
and
Interesting.
the numbers I shared before are still after all of that.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. That's kind of surprising to me, but like I could totally see why the numbers are the way they are. I'm excited to hear about your Miami one after like 12 months.
Yeah, I can't wait to get you'll see it all over my Instagram. I'm excited to get it going.
That's October 1st, you said?
Yeah, so I have the design team right now. We're just ordering the furniture. They're there, boots on the ground. They're putting it all together. And that's the goal. October 1st, up and running.
Nice. So I wanted to ask you about that as well. Like I see a massive opportunity for Airbnb rentals in the US and places like Florida and Miami and places that are just busy all year round with tourists. Um, I don't want to go into too detail, obviously, but like, what's the general process as a Canadian buying in the U.S. Let's just say, what are the general checklist of items you need to look at?
Well, it can be different everywhere. Like we're foreign investors, so um, luckily Florida had if you go through TD Bank or RBC, you're able to get away as a Canadian investor with 20% down. I didn't know this going into it. It was a big learning curve for me, but
Yeah,
just on paper, generally speaking, it's 25 to 30% for a foreign investor. So you have to look at those things, make sure that makes sense for you because it's a good chunk of change down, right?
yeah,
And taxes are another big thing too, right? So you want to consult a cross-border accountant, consult your accountant, and make sure you're set up properly, whether it's a corporate structure or personally, like whatever makes more sense. Because if you intend on bringing that money back, you got to be aware of like double taxation, things like that. So a lot of due diligence for sure. Best thing is to talk to people who have done it, people with experience, because they'll be able to tell you what to do versus the trial and error if you have access to that.
yeah.
I kind of took it all on my own, so I learned really quickly on my own, but I'm happy I did because now I can share, and it's a fun, stressful process, but it's very rewarding.
Yeah. Other than the foreign income tax that you also have to declare in Canada, is there any other tax?
Um, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. I will learn as we go with it.
Yeah.
We are setting it all up with our accountant properly, with corporations in Canada, holding companies, stuff like that in the States, LLCs, to protect the asset. So I don't know off the top of my head how it
Yeah.
would work until I experience it. But our intention is, and I did the Toronto property with a partner of mine. Sorry, Florida. And our intention is to keep the money there because we want to keep scaling down there. Because down there's no regulations, there's no
Mm.
real, um, you know, uh, resistance to the Airbnb game. It's pretty wide open all year round. So, and just the Florida market in general, I feel like there's still a big opportunity to get in there. Um, Considering what you can buy down there versus what you can buy here, I think it's definitely a good time for
Yeah.
the long run to get in
Nice.
sooner rather than later.
So the buying process then seems pretty straightforward. Like, find a
Just
mortgage broker there, set up probably a bank account.
set up a bank account, consult with a mortgage broker down there or a bank advisor. Get your realtor down there, get your lawyers down there to close the deal, and that's it.
Hmm. Interesting. That's exciting, man. I'm excited to hear more about that one for sure.
Yeah, same.
Uh, and why Florida? You have, I guess, connections in Florida, or
Yeah, personally, I love it. Travel there a lot between you know South Florida, Hallandale, Hollywood, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. I have a lot of good real estate investor mentors that operate down there. They were from Toronto originally, so um, very trusted sources who are killing the game down there. And I'm just seeing what they're able to do. So why
yeah,
not? Why reinvent the wheel?
I
Right?
love it.
They're down
Yeah.
there for a reason. There's a ton of opportunity down there.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask you earlier, which slipped my mind, but do you, when you calculate your investments and your statements, do you keep a reserve each month or allocate a reserve for, I don't know, future big purchases that are needed? Like, I don't know. I guess it's different in a condo, but do you have a line item as a reserve for just to like bank money for future?
I mean, with Toronto property, it's everything I earn in there. I don't take any of it for myself. It stays there.
Right.
Uh, so it's everything comes out of that one account. If there is any larger expense, I'm just going to use the funds from that because we've been able to build up a pretty good cushion now with the profits. So and that'll only grow. So
Yeah.
there's, whatever it is, we'll just allocate accordingly.
That makes sense if you're just keeping it all in the account for sure. Nice. So what's the goal over the next 12 months? How many properties do you want to accumulate?
Well, I'm doing some rental arbitrage too. That's a totally different topic for Airbnb, but in terms of purchasing, I definitely want to purchase one for sure. Um, if it makes sense, and maybe again, maybe partner with someone, maybe another one. Depends on the opportunity. I feel like we're in a bit of we're at a time of opportunity right now.
Absolutely.
Time to park some cash and to monitor and see what comes up because yeah, these are the times
I
where
agree.
you can really double, triple whatever you're doing before. So
Yeah, totally agree.
uh,
We're in that
yeah,
window.
of all that, and then rental arbitrage is just find a landlord who's willing to give you their property, and they agree that you can sublet it on Airbnb. You pay them their rent, and then you just keep the profits.
So I was going to ask about that rental. So you're finding a landlord or finding an owner of a property, and you're just renting it for them. And
Yeah, like I have some strategic relationships and partnerships I've done with developers, for example. So they have multi-family buildings, and um, they want to avoid the whole tenancy board and the issues that come with that. And we work out a partnership where we're going to give them their base rent that they would have gotten with a
okay.
regular tenant,
Hmm.
plus add a little bit of juice on top of that for them too. So they're in turn making more. They don't have to worry about dealing with the whole landlord tenant board, and then us as the guys operating it for them will ideally keep the profits, right?
I like
But so
that. Yeah.
that's what it is. You go to a landlord, have them agree. You sublet it on Airbnb, whether it's furnished or not. That's your own expense, and you just guarantee them their base rent, maybe a little bit more, just to entice them,
Yeah.
and then you just take the profits. That's it.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned it a couple of times, but like the tenancy board, like what are some of the negatives that come with that?
Well, I mean, if good luck trying to evict. Like tenants have all the rights, right? Like tenants are favored.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of horror stories where a tenant, like, have you heard of people may have heard of professional tenants,
Yeah.
right? So
Oh yeah.
they know the book inside and out. They'll go on a property, they won't pay you. They know the amount of time they can get away with, or the amount of months they can get away with before something happens. Like I just had a client who lost 6 months worth of pay. I have my grandparents; they lost 6 months worth of pay, and nothing they can do.
Wow.
Um, like it's more so the time. to get everything dealt with, that time is money.
Yeah.
So yeah, like eventually, these guys are clearly in breach. Um, they will get evicted at a certain point, but that time in between that it takes from them, from the point you tell them to the point that they act, whether that's 3, 6 months, 8 months, that time is money lost.
Yeah.
So if you can avoid that risk, like, yeah, vet your potential tenant, like double check them, background check everything. But there is a lot of fraud out there. There's a lot of, you never really know. I've seen some candidates look amazing on paper and then they're like the worst tenant possible. So it's hard to really gauge from a credit score, from a job letter,
For
um,
sure.
right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. If anyone has ever hired for business, like you'll know what you read on the CV and the resume. Compared to when you speak to them and learn more about them, could be like two totally different people. But um,
100%.
yeah, after speaking to you now, learning more about Airbnb, I feel like the biggest like negative speaking to other people who are not so keen on this is just like the biggest argument I've heard is like the headaches involved with it and like the upkeep. But it seems like in your case, like a company like Park Place, like alleviates that like fully. Like, they're like seem to be this gold mine of a service.
Listen, like I have a buddy who kills it. He has a cottage and they crush it. Like he has I think he's running like three of his own properties right now. He's a mortgage broker friend, killing it. Literally like living off his passive income, buying the sickest cars. Like the guy is crushing it. And him and his wife, they love managing the property. They love the game.
Yeah,
They love going there. They love having their name as the host. They love getting their own. Like they love that. Personally, for me, I have this real estate for me on the investing side is passive. I'm big on building my own real estate brand and building on big in my own real estate business. And I personally just would rather hand off all
yeah,
that work to someone, pay them, and not have to worry. I don't do like I don't do a thing, Costa. Like I don't do anything. I literally have them doing from A to Z. I get my monthly invoice of my earnings. I do like to check and see where it's at for the month because it's fun to see in real time people booking your unit, and we get notified when people do. But to do all that legwork, like if that's a worry for you, a consumer out there, like a potential investor out there, like it's not hard to just hire a trustworthy, reputable property management team. Give them 20%. Run your numbers before with 20% in mind. If it still makes sense, then why not? Because
yeah.
that whole stress factor, I don't have at all.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'd be in the same boat if I was like I totally pass that on to someone as well. But yeah, I could totally see others who like the game and enjoy the process. So yeah, that's fair too. Out of anyone you've helped or people you know, what's the like best producing income wise Airbnb that you've seen?
Um, Probably in Florida. It's like a 30% cash on cash.
Wow.
Some of these properties, like you'll see, depending on the purchase price, obviously, something like mine will do like 120 to 140,000 a year. Then that's gross, right?
Yeah.
Then you have properties that are doing 465. I was in a $6 million house in Hallandale, Florida, that generates $75,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
so and that attracts celebrities. That attracts high net worth individuals. Like that.
Yeah.
That's the clientele they're going for. They have
Yeah.
a yacht parked in the back. Like they have a full service where you land, we got the car for you, we got the boat for you. Like it's a full concierge, right? So and based off the numbers, I think they were cash flowing multiple six figures.
Jeez.
Um, yeah. So
Florida's like the US in general is just like a whole nother animal, like just the money there compared to
it's
Canada.
interesting. Yeah, like a lot of us maybe we wait to feed ourselves on the idea of branching off because it's like, what are the barriers to entry? It's like, who do I know? It's like, oh shit, like that's such a I don't even want to bother because I gotta figure out I gotta make contacts down there now. I gotta do all these things. But when you look for it, like having the tools like social media and things like that, where you can easily access people who have done it,
Yeah.
it's really not that bad. And I mean the the cap rates down there are way better. So just from a numbers perspective, like borders or traveling or barriers of entry aside, like from an
Yeah.
investor standpoint, the numbers make way more sense down there. So if you could figure out the in between, why not?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it feels like I haven't been too active. I look at real estate everywhere, but like it seems like properties in Florida are still compared to Toronto way more affordable. Is that accurate?
Oh, very yeah, very. I mean, they had their boom. They had their boom, but they're a little behind where we're at now. We're seeing this. We already experienced the correction. We're still experiencing the correction. Down there, they're because of the demand with Florida has become a hotspot with during the pandemic and everything because the way the system is governed down there, like they're wide open. So a lot of people who didn't want to be in lockdown, a lot of people started to move down there. A lot of people permanently moving down there. So I mean, the big changes going on down there. Down there, it's already boosted the market up. But
Yeah.
even with their hot market, and I bought at the peak, and it still made way more sense for me.
Yeah. Do you worry at all about the tourism coming into Canada right now? Obviously, it's just Canada seems to be like the most difficult place for people to come into with like all the BS you have to do, arrive can, this and that, vaccinations. Like, does that worry you at all, like long term?
I mean, or this unit, my Toronto unit, still did it really well. Like, did amazing, even with all these things. Right. Last year
Yeah.
with lockdown, a lot more difficult. You couldn't physically fly into the country or fly out unless it's like for really
Uh,
specific situations. That
yeah.
was different.
Are most
Now
of
you can.
your are most of your guests from like suburbs of Toronto just coming in for the weekend, or people from out of country or province, or
Mixed. People want to experience the city for the weekend. People who are visiting for work. People who are visiting for events. There's so much going on in Toronto, like especially this year now that it's been open. Like there's different music festivals. There's different cultural festivals. There's like so much going on all the time that it's going to attract some sort of demographic that
yeah,
want to experience that festival, whether they're a local person from Vaughan, for example, who wants to come and experience Rolling Loud, or it's someone from New York who wants to come to the International Film Festival,
yeah, that's
or
true.
it could be really anyone,
So it's a good
good or
mix.
bad.
There's not one more than the other, basically.
Oh, it's a good mix.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good stuff, man. Is there anything else that like I feel like I didn't ask or like is important with Airbnb?
No, I think we touched on everything. It's definitely a learning curve. I would suggest, definitely grabbing someone who understands the game, ask your questions. Like you doing this kind of podcast is valuable. I'm sure people learned a lot. I'm still learning. Um, if anyone's looking to get help with it, you can reach out to me too. Um, but yeah, I think we covered most of it really.
Yeah, I think so too. That's awesome. I know we're recording this on a long weekend, so I don't want to take up more of your time, but I really do appreciate it. I think a lot of people listening are going to get a ton of value. I know I did, so I wanted to speak to you. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and maybe we can do this. Like we should do this again sometime because I'd love to learn about Miami after a few months and
We can do it part two
get
with the
some
Florida
insights
stuff.
on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. I'm a big podcaster myself, so I definitely
I know. Yeah.
enjoy it.
So if someone, I didn't even ask like before, like to introduce yourself because I feel like a lot of people listen to my podcast are the realtors. Like you're pretty well known, but like where can people find you? Want to
Yeah,
reach out?
so Instagram is at Matt Campoli, Mattcampoli. I have a real estate niche podcast called Price to Sell Podcast. Also have another podcast with some friends that's just more entrepreneurial, inspirational, motivational, touch on everything really. That's called It's Simple Podcast.
What's that one called?
But It's Simple
It's simple.
Podcast.
Okay, nice.
Just yeah, go on my Instagram. All my links to everything are there. I am a Toronto realtor. Um, I can also help you in Florida now as well. If
Nice.
anyone's looking to get into the Airbnb game from an investor standpoint, I can help you from start to finish in both places.
Amazing. So
So
do you have a license in Florida as well?
no, it's something that I've been offered a sponsorship. It's something I probably could get my hands on and probably will in the future. But for now, I have realtor partners I work very closely with. down there that know the game very well, like myself.
Nice.
So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. Thanks so much, Matt. Appreciate it. And all the best and best of luck.
yeah, thanks so much, man. Thanks for
All
having me.
right. Thanks again.